Okay, you can have a seat. Multi-talented. We are so glad Josh is back with us. Had a little health hiccup, and you come back full blazing. Great job, band. We are so glad that you are here with us this morning. My name is Andrea Smith. I have the privilege of being the pastor here, and we are glad that of all the things that you could be doing this Sunday morning, you have chosen to be here. We are kicking off summer today. We are finishing up our message series, Running on Empty, and talking about this guy named Elijah. We've talked about him a lot, and the point is not that I didn't want to learn more content. The point is that maybe the next time you face some really difficult things in life, or somebody that you know and love are facing difficult things, you can remember the story. So we're going to encapsulate that today and send you on your way getting ready for what is going to be a great Sunday next Sunday. So next Sunday is going to be totally different. There will be no worship here. We will not be here. We will meet at Lake Norman State Park. Hopefully you've gotten some emails with this information in it, and we will send it out again tomorrow. We'll send it out via text. We'll send it out again on Friday. We're going to be if you go to the state park, and we have a video in just a few seconds we're going to show you. If you go to the state park, it's right before you get to the beach area. There's a road to the left. There's tons of parking, and so it's going to be a great Sunday. We're going to have potluck food that hopefully you will make. Some of you have signed up, and thank you so much for going ahead and doing that. The video is showing now. Okay, so I will let you watch the video for just a minute. This is the picnic area that we will be at. The lake is right there. We will not go, you can't get in the lake at this area because there's no lifeguard there and it's against the rules. But we invite you to come. We also invite you to bring friends. One of our things is to be non-threatening. And so hopefully next Sunday you can say, hey, come check out my church. There will be some motivational words. I'm not going to be preaching or delivering a sermon. So I hope that it is a great day for you to invite your friends. It's going to go from 10 to 1. You don't have to stay the whole time. 10, we're going to have worship music, and we're excited about that. Then we're going to play music bingo and have some fun prizes for that, and then just a few words, and then food and community building opportunities. So I promise it will be fun. If you'll take a chance, come out to Lake Norman State Park next Sunday. Josh did a lot of work trying to figure out how to live stream for those of you who are worshiping with us online, and we think that other than taking some years off of his life by stressing out over it and the fact that there's just no good cell signal there, we are going to do something equally as engaging, minus the food, with you online. It will be pre-recorded, but we will be manning it live. And so it's going to have its own game to kick off summer of fun. And so online folks, please don't feel slighted. You are going to have your own unique experience, and I hope you will check that out online. Then next Sunday, we're going to announce the rest of the summer meetups, and we're going to communicate about those. You voted, you chose a movie night, you chose coffee and conversations, so we're really excited to share with you what those things are going to be this summer. So we really look forward to that with you as well. I do hope you'll come next Sunday to Lake Norman State Park or check us out online. We're excited today to talk about values and purpose. That's how we're going to end this whole message series on Elijah. So thanks for being here this morning. We hope you find it meaningful and relevant. So this week I had the privilege, my son and his wife live in upstate New York, and back in October they had their firstborn. And there are some challenges that come with being a grandparent that works a full-time job and having a child that lives 12 hours away and being intentional about time together. So they were going to be in Washington, D.C. for a conference for his wife, Nicole. And they asked me if I wanted to babysit. And so I will confess, Unfortunately for my children, I'm not one of those grandparents. Like, I'm not like, yes, please let me 8 hours with a small person. It's just not in my DNA. I'm not wired that way. Although, when my son asks and my daughter asks, I try very hard to say yes. So, at 5 a.m., I got up on Tuesday ready to drive to DC so that I could launch into babysitting. And of course, we've been talking about running on empty and how we run out of gas. That was something we talked about the first couple of weeks. I told some pretty honest stories about how I tend to run out of gas. And so some of you shared with me that even if you don't remember anything else about Elijah, you will remember to check your gas tank, which I would appreciate. I mean, like, the world would be a better place if we don't run out of gas. We won't have nearly as much anxiety and stress when that happens. So I go to the little convenience store in Troutman on Perth Road. It's still dark, okay? Like, it's before 6 a.m. It's still dark. There's only one other truck there, and there's 6 pumps, or 3 pumps. Well, I don't know how many pumps there are. Anyway, there were a lot. And there's only one guy there. So I look at the guy. I notice that he's pumping his gas already, and I think, oh, great, okay. So I pull up right behind him so I could leave room for others, and I hold my little card up, and I'm over 50, so the whole tap to pay thing stresses me out a little, but I trust it to work, so I tap my little credit card on the pump, and then it says start pumping. Wouldn't you start pumping the gas if that's what had happened? So I take the little thing out of the gas pump, plug it in or put it in my car, push the nozzle, and I start pumping gas. I'm feeling like things are going okay. I feel like nothing here should be going wrong at any time. The guy in front of me, again, is not concerned with me at all. He's minding his business, pumping his gas. I'm pumping mine. Again, it's still dark. I do get a little anxious sometimes in situations like this. And then I turn around, like, to throw something in the trash can, and there's a woman right there. And she says, "You're taking gas from someone." And I'm like, what? And she's like, "You're stealing someone's gas. You didn't pay for this." And I'm like, "Yes, I did. I took my card, I put it on the tap to pay, blah, blah, blah." And she's like, "This is not your gas. You're taking from someone." And I'm like, "Ma'am, I promise you, I am not stealing gas." And she's like, "It's that guy's." And at this point, he turns and looks at me. When I get anxious, that manifests itself with another emotion that is probably not one that I'm very proud of. But I'm anxious at this point. She's telling me that I'm stealing. I'm worried about how that's going to go down. I'm also worried about what time I'm supposed to arrive in DC. My children are punctual, and they like for their mother to be, and I am not. And so I have that anxiety going on. I'm like, I don't have time to stand here and argue about the fact that I have not stolen anyone's gas. There was no one at the pump. I go up there. I do what you do when you get gas. And then that man turns and looks at me. I'm like, "Why didn't you say something? Why didn't you tell me that I'm stealing your gas? Why didn't you say something?" He just looks at me really confused and then turns his back completely to me. I'm like, they're going to have me arrested for being a lunatic. That's what's getting ready to happen. And I turned back around to the woman and I said, "Ma'am," now granted, I had no idea who she was. There's no name tag. There's no uniform. Apparently, she worked there. And she's like, "The pump was already for him, and you're stealing his gas." And I'm like, "Ma'am, I had no way of knowing that. He's down there. I stood here for a minute before I started pumping, getting my stuff out of the car, etc. No one said anything." Long story short, they'd already set the pump. It wouldn't work, so we went to the next one. And so I go give some random stranger my credit card to pump his gas, to pay for his gas. It was the most bizarre thing. Tom's like, "You did what with your credit card?" I'm like, As I'm saying this, I realize that that's a really bad idea and probably not what I should have done. She wanted me to have cash. And I'm like, ma'am, I don't have $100 cash. I don't carry cash. And it made me think about this. First of all, that there's always drama, apparently, with me and gas. But the thing that bothered me the most was that the gentleman didn't say anything. I mean, if he knew he was there and he'd already put $100, it still doesn't make any sense to me. How many times are we running out of gas and we just don't say anything? And then we end up depleted and empty. We've been talking about Elijah for 6 weeks, and he was one of the most powerful prophets of the Hebrew Scriptures of the Old Testament times. He knocked out hundreds of prophets in a battle. They were worshiping Baal, and he conquered them. So much so that he made the king and queen so angry that the queen wanted to have him killed, and so he ran away. And he goes to a brook, and while he's at the brook, he has everything that he needs. And that's what our life feels like so many times. We feel like we've got everything that we need, and we just go with it. And then as time progresses, we learn more and more that maybe what we have is not what we needed, and maybe what we have is running out, and maybe what we have is not enough. And then because we are conditioned as human beings to be okay, and we're conditioned as human beings to be strong and in control, we don't say anything. We just let different things of our life, like me at the gas pump, steal our joy, rob us of the very things that we are created to be at one with. I apologize to the gentleman and the woman. We did some kind of funky transaction where I gave her the little cash I had, and she gave me, it was odd. But I walked away thinking, if someone had just said something. So this morning, I want us to do a little self-analysis of where we are with the whole thing and running on empty. Is your gas tank full? Is it empty? Are you listening to that inner voice that is God telling you that you are loved and you are enough? Or are you listening to that inner critic like we talked about last week that's always telling you you need to do more, you must be more, you are never enough? So I don't know if you follow celebrity culture or TV stuff. Here's a picture of a lady named Hoda Kotb. She was one of the anchors of the Today Show, which, as I understand it, has been one of the most popular morning shows around. And then she retired to go be with her children, and different news articles portray this different ways, but some say that she misses the celebrity of the Today Show. And so she's been trying to come back during the absence of Savannah Guthrie after her mom was kidnapped. So whether you like Hoda Kotb or not, she's a pretty prominent persona in the news today. She started this app, and it's called Joy 101. And she thought it was going to be this transition into a new part and phase of her life. But it hasn't taken off in the way that she had hoped. Recently, she was not on the Today Show, but she was outside working the crowd during the Today Show. It was pouring down rain. It was a nasty, nasty day in New York City, and she was giving out flowers, fresh flowers. Now, the news article that I read, and then I saw some videos talking about this, the thing that they were noting is that she was going around to people giving out these flowers and saying, "Are you full of joy? Are you full of joy? Is this your best day ever? This should be your best day ever. Here are some flowers." Now, one of the news commentators said, "Wouldn't you give people umbrellas instead of fresh flowers if they're standing out in the pouring rain and cold of New York City?" And I would have tended to agree with that news commentator, but I'm also an angry person yelling at a stranger at a gas tank. So I've got some stuff. But it did, not gonna lie, seem disingenuous. Isn't this your best day ever? And then she said, "This should be your best day ever." You have no idea what folks have lived through, what they are living through. And I think that's part of the problem with our culture, with our society, and why we feel like sometimes that it isn't okay to say, "I'm not okay, I'm struggling, I'm tired, I'm sad, I'm broken, I'm hurting, I'm angry, I'm afraid." We're scared to say all those things because we're going to be perceived by others as not being enough. And so we bury our voice until we, like Elijah, get stuck in that cave and we are so broken and so empty that we just can't even find the words anymore to say, "I have nothing left." And so we say nothing. And we withdraw and we become smaller and more insignificant because we're afraid to claim who we are, where we are, and what we need. Last week we talked about the inner critic, and that there's this tape reel that plays in our head over and over again, and it is often not one going, "You are amazing. Go look in the mirror, see how amazing you are." That's not the tape we hear. The tape we hear is often telling us that we are not enough. There is so much noise in our lives right now, so much noise. It is so hard to claim our voice, to claim who we are, and to find peace in knowing that even when we aren't enough, even when we make mistakes, even when we fall short of other people's expectations, that we are still a person of self-worth and still a person of deep love because we are loved by a creator that is simply pure love. I want you to take a look at these things on the screen. These are things that are the noise in our lives right now. Expectations. How many times do you feel like you're living into the expectations of others around you and you're missing the mark over and over again? You want to give that inner voice more validity? Live into people's expectations. Outrage. If you don't believe we're living in a time of outrage, barring your pastor having anger at a man at a gas station, just scroll social media. It's bad. We say hurtful things to one another. Watch TikTok reels. The new thing, which I don't understand, is to video people that have no knowledge that you're videoing them and then criticize them. I saw a TikTok reel this week of a woman who visited Dachau, and she wore a dress that it took me a long time and reading a lot of comments to even figure out what they were criticizing her for, but it was because the stripes of her dress were similar to the stripes of some of the uniform of the prisoners. I doubt very seriously she researched her outfit and the uniforms of the prisoners before she went. And this person videoed her all the way through the day. And when I started reading the comments, honestly, I felt good about it because people were saying, where have we gone in our society that it is okay to violate someone's privacy and video them and then put it on social media? Outrage. We are so hypercritical and judgmental and angry. That is a noise that we all, including me, need to get a handle on. Urgency. Everything is urgent. Everything has to be right now. Productivity. We're expected to produce more. We're always plugged in. I've heard from friends that work in corporate America that the whole 9 to 5 work day, 8 hours a day, it doesn't exist anymore. Bosses expect people to work on their downtime. Comparison trap. Another downfall of social media. We open and we look at the perfect reels of everyone else and compare our lives and how they fall short. A few more. Notifications. We have a rule in our staff meetings now that phones have to be on silent and turned over because there are constant notifications, constant dings from different things. And if we're not intentional about it, those notifications drive us so many different ways. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, watch how quick you grab for your phone. And when you do, what's on your screen? Lots of times overnight, we get all these notifications, and then those are the first things of the day that we think about. Algorithms. If you think things are accidental on social media, any platform, we are sorely mistaken. The folks that design these platforms, they are intentional about the ads that you see. There's a documentary on Netflix that's fascinating about this. And like it or not, our phones listen to us. You talk about a brand of something, and then before you know it, before a few hours pass, the next time you log into social media, you're going to see an ad for that particular brand of item. The algorithms are a real and dangerous part of the noise that exists in our lives. Opinions, everybody's got one. And then criticism. There's such a thing as constructive criticism, and then there's words that are thrown at us that are just meant to hurt. And whether we like it or not, all those things that I just mentioned, they add up and they get in our head, and we just feel overwhelmed. I want to read to you from 1 Kings 19 one final time. This is after he had been at the brook, and the brook dried up after a while. He began running on empty. And he had fled 40 days and nights into the deepest part of the desert, trying to escape Jezebel and her killing him. Never mind that he had already conquered 450 all of their prophets. He was so tired and so defeated, he felt like his only option was to run. He's in a cave, and he wakes up from his sleep. And the word of God came to him. So Elijah, what are you doing here? I've been working my heart out for the God of the angel armies. The people of Israel have abandoned your covenant, destroyed the places of worship, and they've murdered your prophets. I'm the only one left, and right now they're trying to kill me. And then he was told, go stand on the mountain at attention before God, and God will pass by. A hurricane wind ripped through the mountains and shattered the rocks before God. But God wasn't to be found in the wind. After the wind, an earthquake, but God wasn't to be found in the earthquake. After the earthquake, fire, but God wasn't in the fire. And after the fire, a gentle and a quiet whisper. When Elijah heard the quiet voice, he muffled his face with his great cloak, and he went to the mouth of the cave and stood there. A quiet voice asked, "So, Elijah, now tell me, what are you doing here?" God is asking us that same question. So, now tell me, what are you doing here? For 6 weeks, we've talked about mental health. We've talked about burnout. We've talked maybe too much about running out of gas. We've talked about really hard things. We've talked about being alone and feeling alone. We've talked about feeling abandoned. We've talked about being afraid. We've talked about discernment of voices in our head and which ones are God voices and which ones are anything but. I love in this passage that when God comes to Elijah, first he says, "So, Elijah, what are you doing here?" And then God provides all these things, earthquake, wind, fire, and none of that noise. And none of that noise was God. And then there's a whisper. And then God goes back to Elijah and said, same words, but adds a phrase. "So, Elijah, now tell me. Now tell me, what are you doing here?" As best I can tell, we got one shot at this thing called life. I don't think there are do-overs. I think once we leave this realm of consciousness, we are in this eternal realm of perfection and consciousness that is called heaven. It's a state of being where we are united with what we understand to be God, and then all that beauty is revealed to us. Whereas I don't think we're going to be able to say every single day, "This is my best day ever, and I'm full of joy every single day." Whereas I don't think we can do that. I think we can get to a place where even in the worst circumstances, we can have this foundation within us that is built on God, so that when we find ourselves running into the desert of life because things are hard and they stink and they're difficult and we don't know where to turn, that when we crawl in our own caves, there's this presence of the divine that abides in each of us that prods at us to answer the question, "So, Andrea, now tell me, what are you doing here?" And so this morning, we're going to do that literally. We're going to figure that out individually as a part of worship. If you're worshiping online, I put a link for you in the chat room early on as worship started. So scroll through your chat room chat and find that link. Or I sent it out in an email to all the West folks that read all of our things, and it's a PDF. So we're going to turn the lights up now, and hopefully you have a paper. If you don't, you can check your email. You probably got an email this morning that has the same information on it. I want you to look at this. It's called Living in Alignment. What matters most? And on your handout, there are a lot of words that Dr. Julie Smith in her book, Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before? They call these words values. So hopefully you have a pen, and I'm going to time you. You're going to have 2 minutes, and I want you to circle 10 of these things that you value. Don't overthink it. Don't spend too much time on it. You're going to have 2 minutes to circle 10 things that are important to you. Ready? Go. All right, now I'm going to give you 1 minute, and I want you to mark out 5 of the things that you just chose. I did it this morning, and I timed myself in my office, so cross out 5 things that you can't keep. Go. All right, stop. Now, do you see those 2 boxes at the bottom of your page? You have 30 seconds to pick 2. Pick 2 of the things that you want to build your life around. Pick 2. You have 20 seconds. Now, I want you to think about those 2 words. I want you to look at 3 questions that I want you to answer. Looking back on this chapter, like what you're living in and through right now, looking back on this chapter someday, what would make you feel proud of how you handled it? Looking back on this chapter, whatever you're living into and through right now, when you look back at it, what will make you feel proud of how you handled it? The next question. What kind of person do you want to be for the people in your life? What kind of person do you want to be for the people in your life? And the last one. If no one ever knew how you spent your time, would you still spend it the way that you're doing now? If no one knew what you did, how you spent your time, would you still spend it in the same way that you're doing now? For me, my 2 words, trust and gratitude. And as I debated whether or not I was going to tell you my words, I'm like, they're going to ding me because I didn't say faith. You're my pastor. That's like a given. Where I am in my chapter of life right now, there are just a few personal, not professional, icky things that I've got to live through. I've got to navigate. And they trigger deep, deep fear. It's why my voice broke last Sunday when I said, I am afraid. I can say that on any good, normal day. But last Sunday, there's just some stuff. And I believe that it is life's way of teaching me to be faithful to who I am and what I'm called to do and how to be. And so as I went through all my words, and I did the exercise just like I asked you to do, it was hard. It was hard to cross out things I'm like, I want to be a person of integrity. I'm like, but I got to get to. So for me, I am here to be a person who trusts God, trust others, trust you. And I am going to be a person of gratitude because I believe with all of my being, gratitude changes everything. Instead of being angry, I love Tom calls me out on my stuff. So he called me that morning as I was driving to D.C., and I'm like, let me tell you what happened. There was this man at the gas station and some woman, and so I tell him my story, and he's like, okay, yeah. I'm like, you're not incensed. He's like, well, I wouldn't have given my credit card to a stranger, but short of that, I don't know what you're so worked up about. And I realized it was the inconvenience. I was stressed about going to D.C. I didn't have time to go to D.C. anyway, but driving 12 hours to Ithaca is getting a little old. And they both work full-time jobs. They can't come here easily at all. And I took out all my stuff on that man and that woman. I am here to be a person of trust and a person of gratitude. So when uncomfortable things happen to me, I'm going to ask God, what can I learn from this? How can I be a better human? How can I practice grace? And not just for other people, but for myself. Give myself a break. How do you answer that question? Put your 2 words in that sentence. I'm here for blank and blank. And as you go through life and you find yourself running on empty, at least for the next year, Julie Smith, Dr. Smith, that wrote the book that we've referenced during this series, recommends doing this once a year. As you find yourself running on empty, remember, doing more does not always equal more in our lives. And just because something is loud, it does not mean that it is Lord. God, Lord. Just because something demands your attention or dings you or pulls at you, do not mistake that noise for God. Just because something is loud does not mean it is Lord. Do not run on empty. You don't have to. We have a God that gives us what we need. Let us pray. Gracious God, we are grateful that you show up in our caves. You call us by name. You help us discern what values that we have, what we need to focus on, what we need to let go. Thank you for being such a good God. We are so grateful that you provide for us what we need by other people, by situations. And God, when our tanks get empty, remind us that it all isn't always in the noise that we find you. Help us to hear you above the noise. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. I invite you to stand and sing Good, Good Father. So today is we call it a town hall meeting. We're going to have these once a quarter, just so you can have an opportunity to hear sort of behind the scenes where we are, what's going on, what's coming up. Ask any questions that you have. We had one back in the fall, and it went really well, so we're going to try to do these once a quarter. So if you're here and you want to stay for that, I invite you to go get a snack out in the commons area, and then in 10 minutes, we will resume at whatever 10 minutes from now is, 11:13. And online folks, we are staying live streaming so you can be a part of that. So we're excited to do that. Thank you, tech team, for making that happen. The bottom line is not every day is going to be a day full of joy. It just is not going to work out that way. But even when we start running on empty, we have what we need to make sure that our well does not run dry, nor does our gas tank. And maybe sometimes we might end up buying somebody else's gas, and even that is okay. There's gratitude in all things. Don't let your tank run empty. Go in peace. Well, thank you all for coming into our town hall. And so here's the agenda. This will be short, but it will be an opportunity to just share with you sort of where we are. It'll talk about the stuff that I just think is cringeworthy to talk about in worship, like the budget. We'll show you the budget and that kind of stuff. Then we're going to talk about the budget. We're going to talk about the calendar. I'm going to give you a chance to ask any questions that you may have, and then we will go away. We are live streaming, right? So do y'all, Dave, you see the chat room in Jen? And welcome. Yes, Debbie Doom watches every week. Josh's mom, one of our most faithful online people. So let's start with not the fun part. Well, no. Let's start with the calendar. So summer is a challenge around here. We have gotten to where we're like almost at 100 in-person worship multiple weeks. And just for the last 3, you can tell our attendance is going back down, but our online is still strong. We do watch that. We track attendance monthly now instead of every week because it helps my mental health. And Martin appreciates not getting emails from me on Monday like, what the heck happened to our finances? He's like, it's the way the calendar hits. Martin, will you wave at everybody? That is Martin Rose. He is our treasurer, finance guru, and so he is the one who produces these numbers in line with the PAC team. PAC team, if you are here, will you stand up and let people stare at you for just a minute? Emily's there. There's John. Is that all? All right, good. Mike is back there and Adam, and we have Lori and a few others. So here are the things that are coming up that I think you need to know about. June 14th is going to be picnic at the park. People have responded. We already have over 26 people that have signed up to bring food. And at West, we never sign up for things, period. And so that is a win. We feel like we know that more people are going to be there. Then June 21st, that's Father's Day. That's going to be a normal day, just a normal day of worship here. But then this is where it gets a little hairy, and that's why I wanted us to talk about it. June 28th, we desperately need to have a no huddles day because we have 2 pods full of stuff for the bash. One pod is full of school supplies. What happened at last year's bash is that we had like 1,400 or 1,500 kids register and only like 1,100 come. And my numbers are a little off, but you'll get the picture. So for 300 kids, we bought stuff. And we always pad the numbers anyway because we never want to send anyone away not having what they need. And so we had all these school supplies left over, which is good because we didn't have any budget left over. And so on June the 28th, the last Sunday in June, there are going to be 2 opportunities. Becca is going to lead school supply inventory here, and we're going to have a solid count because we pulled some things for Old Fort last year after this bash, and so we just have no idea really what we have. But we know we have stuff, and we don't want to go buy more stuff until we know exactly what we need. So on June the 28th, y'all will be here I'm at a wedding again, I think. It is the season. I have 6 weddings this year. So I will be at a wedding, but Becca's going to lead it here. Lane and Dawn will also be here, and then they're going to go to the office, and we have another whole pod full of clothes, which is amazing. It's the most clothes we've ever had for the bash, which is really exciting because the people last year loved it, and they took almost everything. They were so grateful because we will know what we have. We'll be able to give away more, and so we're really excited about that. So June 28th is a no huddles. Now, the July 5th thing that I want to talk to you about, I think you'll understand more after I show you our budget. But every Sunday morning cost us probably over $1,200, $1,300 by the time we pay setup, tear down, production, band. I mean, it costs to have a Sunday morning here. Lots of you, lots of times, and online people, you worship online. And so if there's ever a time that we can pull back on some of our expenses on a Sunday, we try to take advantage of that opportunity. And so on July the 5th, knowing that it is the 250th anniversary of our country and we generally like to party, and you're tired, and on Sunday mornings you're not raring to go like, oh, let me go to church always. We're going to do online only. Now, I don't want you to feel like you're getting gypped. I've already started working on that message while I was in D.C. I went to Arlington National Cemetery. I spent some time at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. I'm already working on what I hope will be a powerful message to share about freedom and identity. And so online folks, everybody will be online that day. And so there will be no worship here. We wrestled with that. But another thing is so many of our folks, like the ones that are back there right now, Mike and Wayne, they are here for free. And they do not cost us anything, but it's their holiday too. And so one of the things that we try to do is increase morale by not having as many responsibilities when we can. And the same is true for Dawn and Lane. They do not make what they deserve to be paid. And so if they can have some extra time off, they certainly deserve it. Plus, the next 2 weeks are just a little nightmarish, to be honest. I mean, getting ready for the bash, even though we have hundreds of volunteers and all this other stuff, it really does. It is driven by the board of directors and our staff. And so to take off that Sunday, I hope is something that you'll be in support of. So July 5th will be online only. And then July 12th, we will be at Mooresville Middle School. That is the day historically that we all show up there. We get the school ready for the bash, which is the next Saturday. And so that is 3 Sundays in a row of non-traditional worship. I'm not crazy about that, but it just needs to happen to make what we do happen. And we'll make a little mini video that we put out on social media talking about that, talking about the reasons for these things. And then in August, we're going to have Amped Camp again, August 9th, 16th, and 23rd. That has been a huge win for West. Instead of trying to do Vacation Bible School like every other traditional church, having it on Sunday morning has gotten more families to come here, newer families to come here, more children. And so Amped Camp will be in August. So I wanted to give you that. We're going to put all this in an e-news. All the dates will be in an e-news. But I wanted to talk to you about the why behind that and not just think that we're all taking like 6 weeks off, because that is not the case. Now I want to share with you, these are numbers that Martin so graciously pulled with our PAC team. So here, and this was in an e-news. One of the things our vision team said is they would like to see quarterly where we are financially. And I don't want to talk about it in worship because that feels like it compromises the integrity of worship. So here's where we are. This is where we spent money on. This was in an e-news a few weeks ago. So let's go to the next slide. And this, when you look at it, you're going to be like, wow, that's so good. And it is good, but there's a good but. So the blue is amount budgeted. The black is actual giving. January was a bad month. Remember, we missed 2 Sundays in January, 2 in a row because of ice. I didn't think it would impact us because our giving is online, but it impacted us. And then the gray is where we were in 2025. Now, other than January, one thing that I think we can celebrate is that our giving is higher than it was a year ago. So that's because of you. That's because you took steps in your generosity and your faithfulness to God. Now, the bad part about that is this gap in January really, really hurt. February was pretty even. March, we actually collected more than we needed. And then in April, we were a little behind. So where we are numerically is year to date through April, we have collected $141,300. Now, this is budgeted giving. This is like if you go to headingwest.org and give, and you do not choose pastor's discretionary. Is that correct, Martin? Right. This does not include any monies that go to pastor's discretionary. It is just giving to the church. Since year-to-date April, you have given $141,300. What we have budgeted is $152,000. So that's a discrepancy of $12,000 roughly. Ron Marino, don't check my math. But and then we have spent $150,500. And so one of the things that Dawn and Lane do a tremendous job with, and Luann, she is also an unpaid staff person. She manages our worship production team, and she works really hard to make sure that we don't have all paid musicians. Lots of people donate their time. Bree donates her time. JT donates his time. Gary donates a lot of his time. So, like, we haven't spent what we budgeted, and that's a good thing. But we still are like $12,000 short. So the reason that we're not like in bankruptcy is because we had reserves going into this year. We have not paid all of our apportionment payments to the conference, and so that's another reason that we're okay. The vision team has been wrestling with this, like, what do? We don't want to beat people over the head with money. So we talked about the fact that maybe communicating the need would help. And so clearly there is a need. We are faithful with your money. We're not going out to lunch and billing it to the church. We don't do things like that. My pastor's discretionary is not for clothing and shoes. Actually, that's what helps our budget, because people do trust me, thank goodness, and give to pastor's discretionary. So when we are sucking air with the budget, we move the money. That's a designated fund, and so it goes into the budget. So that's where we are financially. As I've said always, that's our biggest thing. The one thing that, caused me to question my leadership and all that kind of stuff is the fact that we struggle financially, and if I were a better leader, then we wouldn't struggle, etc. But then I've been talking with other pastors of large churches, smaller churches, same size churches. Every church is facing the same thing we are. I don't care how good they look on the outside churches. It's just a different culture. My boss shared with me that it takes, I think she said 13 new families to equal a traditional church family as far as tithe goes. And what that means is someone that grew up in the church and was taught you give 10% of your income. In today's society, it takes 13 new families to join a church to equal one. And those are Methodist numbers that they've been wrestling with. And I mean, we're no churches around here other than like some of the mega churches can keep up at that rate. We're going to keep being faithful with how we spend your money. We're going to keep watching for ways to save. The 4th of July is a good example of that. Let's weigh all the cost, and it makes sense to not have worship in person. Okay, good. I was like, oh, I don't want to get shot right now. So anyway, that's my, innate fear. Those were the things that I wanted to talk to y'all about. Do you have any questions? Okay, well, that's good. When I told you I wanted us to buy a small business, you had a lot of questions. And I'm really grateful that you did. If you don't know how that ended, luckily, you all speak up, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for this, for the honesty and transparency that we have. And you're like, I really think this could be a bad idea, and it really was. Martin went through the lease, and it was way complicated, but the bottom line is if we had signed the lease, we would have had to commit a multiple tens of thousands of dollars to the landlord if we got out of the lease after a year. Like, even if the lease ended, we still were going to be responsible for even more. Is that right, Martin? Is that a very bad way of describing that?
Yeah, it had a lot of little wonky stuff in the lease that made you personally.
Yeah, personally liable. That was it. Yeah, that was the big thing. I'm like, first of all, I don't even have that kind of money. And secondly, Tom's not going to be all good for when we get married saying, all right, now I'm signing over my life for the church. So it just was a bad idea. But Soul is doing well. And that's one thing we should do at the next one of these. And I'm sorry I didn't think of it for today. We will have a Soul report. We got a grant from the Reynolds Foundation for $15,000. So as we buy candle vessels and all that stuff, we've been using that grant. So Soul is giving how much a month now, Martin, to West?
Well, we've given $5,000 year to date.
Okay.
And then we're hoping like $2,000 a month.
Okay. Yes, we give, it feels like it ought to be the end of the year, but it's not. This is just through April. And Soul gave $5,000 to be a back-to-school bash sponsor, so $5,000 cash. And so that's almost $10,000. And our biggest sales time is, of course, September, October, November, December. But the meal is consistent. We sell about $2,000 there every month, and the volunteers are amazing in helping us create product. We're working on structure there, and so we're growing into that and into that understanding. Do you have any questions? Beth?
How are things going with Bash, and what do you need?
Buying shoes. Woot, Laura sent an email on Friday, and I was driving, so I didn't see it till later. But watch that Woot site, and honestly, at this point, we still need any size because we needed 20 to 30 of every size. So if you see any tennis shoes, I also noticed Kohl's.com had lots of shoes on clearance. Any kind of tennis shoe, $20-ish. If you purchase it, we can reimburse you. So please don't feel like you have to do it, but just buying the shoes is huge right now. And then after the 28th, we will send out a list of what we need. So thanks for that. Other questions? I thought about doing, and y'all can let me know if you think this is a good idea, not right now, but later. Like, I thought about doing a suggestion box and letting questions be anonymous, because not everybody likes to raise their hand and ask questions, especially around things like budget and attendance and that kind of stuff. I think maybe we'll try that. I always have fear of like hate mail, but I'm pretty sure y'all are not going to do that to me. So, we will do an anonymous question box and maybe put it out near the missions stuff. And so that way, as you ask questions as time goes by, because it can feel intimidating to raise your hand in front of all these people and ask questions. So I'll try that for the next town hall. And I don't have a date for that. Sorry, I want to plan that with Dawn and Lane and not just go willy-nilly and say, hey, I don't care what you've got going on, but this is what's happening at the church. So, yeah. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you for coming, online people. Thanks for staying. I hope you feel enlightened. And I look forward to seeing you next Saturday, or not Saturday, Sunday for the picnic. It's going to be a lot of fun. And music bingo is going to be a blast. So, all right. Thank you, guys.